Hello, future engineers. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this vise assembly that kind of moves a little weird right now, but you will eventually be able to get it to do this, where it just is a working vise. Moves up and down like that. This might be a two-part video. We'll see how long it takes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to assemble this. The parts for it are on our Google Classroom, so please double check that. So I'm going to go and create a new standard assembly in inches, and I'm going to start by placing the top part of the vise. So when I open up that vise, I'm going to right click and place grounded at the origin. So that is our first piece. That top part of the vise doesn't move at all when we are having this vise function go up and down, stuff like that. Cool. Next thing that I'm going to do, I am going to grab the vise cylinder and I am going to place that into my drawing. So we have used our mate constraint before to mate faces, and what we are going to do now is we're going to mate axes. So the axes, the center lines that go through cylindrical parts, we are going to mate those together. So I'm going to grab the axis of this one and the axis of this one. Be sure not to grab just this cylinder where you see that green dot. That actually is a center point, and we don't want to constrain center points. It gets weird. So I'm going to constrain the center line over here and the center line over here. Now, if you notice, it's actually upside down from where we want it to be at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my solution to opposed, and now it's right side up. I'm gonna hit apply. So if I take a look at this, it moves back and forth right along that axis that I had defined. And that's exactly where we want it to be at for right now. Next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to place my vise bottom, open that up, place that right there. Cool. So we're gonna use another, our first new constraint. Our first new constraint that we're going to use is the insert constraint. The insert constraint really works like two constraints at one. It mates edges and axes at the same time. So we want to have this center axis matched with this center axis, and then we also want to have the bottom of this vise bottom, sitting on this edge, this lip over here. So how we define that, we are going to go and find the bottom edge of this. You can see that the edge and the axis align or highlight as we space over them. So I'm going to grab the bottom edge over here, and then I'm going to grab the top edge over here, and they will snap into place. I can hit apply, and now that looks pretty good. It's sitting right on top of it. Can move this up and down. Now, one of the things that is an issue here is that our vise mouth moves through our vise mouth. It's not great. So what we want to do is add another new constraint. This new constraint is going to be our angular constraint. It allows us to basically say things are parallel. It allows us to do a lot of things too, but in this case, we're going to use parallel. So I'm going to choose my undirected angle, and say that this outside face and this outside face have the same angle at 0. Basically meaning that they are aligned, that they are parallel. So I can hit apply, and now this moves up and down, up and down, up and down. The problem is it goes through the vise totally and drops out. So what we want to do next is we want to mate this in a closed position. So I am going to grab my constraint, and I am going to choose my mate constraint, choosing this face and this face. So now they are in a closed position. Cool. So when I hit apply, some issues come up. I can't move this up or down at all. We want to give it limits, how far it can move. So if I go back to that constraint over here, which is the last one, you can find it in your model tree, and I right click and hit edit. There's this menu over on the side here that will allow us to add limits. We're going to add a maximum limit, or the maximum distance it can move from rest, which is going to be 6.25, and a minimum limit, which is 0. So I can hit OK, and now if I click and drag this, it stops at 6.25, and I can move it up to 0, we now have that going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Cool. So I only have one part left, so I'm going to place my vice arm, open it over here. And now I'm going to constrain using a mate constraint on this center axis and this center axis over here. I can hit apply, and I now have this arm over here, but there's an issue. It moves through my object once again. So we're gonna add another mate constraint. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to constrain the outside edge right here, this face, to the center axis. When I do that, I get a shape that actually is inside of my shape over here. I'm gonna go into my visual styles real quick to show you that, yeah, this right now is flush on that axis. So we don't actually want that. What we want is to have this have a nice range of motion. So we're gonna give it an offset to start. That offset is gonna be negative 0.75. It's just gonna move it slightly out of our shape right here so we can get a good endpoint. Now we want it to have a full range of motion going back and forth, so we're gonna add a maximum limit where its maximum limit to move from our resting point is going to be negative 0.75, and our minimum is going to be the length of the actual shape itself, which is going to be 5.5. That is in relation to starting at a negative 0.75. So I can hit apply right there, and now it moves back and forth, and we are done with getting this all constrained except for adding the motion, which we'll do in our next video. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.